Soldiers from Ukraine's 225th Assault Battalion used Himars ambush and destroy Russian troops. Feigning defeat and retreat, soldiers from the Ukrainian Army's 225th Assault Battalion lured a large Russian force into a trap in western Russia's Kursk, Oblast on, or just before Thursday. As the overconfident Russians surged forward into a tree line just outside the village of Sverdlovskovo, possibly believing they were finally about to take control of the long-contested village, a Ukrainian high-mobility artillery rocket system rocket launcher took aim from potentially tens of miles away. As a Ukrainian drone observed, an M30/31 rocket scattered scores of grenade-sized bomblets across the tree line. The strike destroyed a significant part of the enemy's manpower, and our groups returned to complete the clearing of the territory, the 225th Assault Battalion reported. The Thursday ambush, the result of careful coordination between the battalion headquarters and its front-line companies and an adjacent artillery brigade, helps explain why Russian and North Korean casualties have been so high in the 3 months since the 60,000-strong Russian-led army in Kursk redoubled its efforts to eject 20,000 Ukrainian troops from the 250-square-mile salient they have occupied in Kursk since August. According to Ukrainian press, Volodymyr Zelensky, 30,000 Russians have been killed or wounded in Kursk. Not only are the Russian and North Koreans attacking day after day along the same few roads leading toward the town of Sudzha, the anchor of the Ukrainian salient, they're increasingly doing so on foot and with too little support. Infantry are vulnerable to artillery, and especially vulnerable when they cluster together in a pre-sighted kill zone. To lure the Russians into that kill zone near Sverdlovskovo, the 225th Assault Battalion's own infantry conducted a pre-planned withdrawal from the same position. When the enemy, believing in his success, pulled significant forces into this square, they were targeted with cluster munitions from Himars, the battalion explained. It's unclear how many Russians were present and how many were hit. As the wider war on Ukraine grinds toward its 4th year, the biggest Russian assaults might involve 50 vehicles and a few hundred troops. Most Russian assaults are much smaller. Still, it's worth noting that the most disastrous Russian and North Korean attacks in recent weeks, when they failed, left behind hundreds of dead and wounded. That the 225th Assault Battalion is especially proud of the ambush speaks to the potentially enormous Russian body count. It is not often that we can reveal the details of such operations, the battalion stated, but this time we managed to show how coordination, tactics, and modern weapons work in the hands of the armed forces of Ukraine. Desperate and enterprising Russian troops crafted an up-armored assault vehicle out of an old tank, sheet metal and logs, and deployed it as part of a wider mechanized attack on Ukrainian positions around the town of Velika Novosilka in eastern Ukraine's Donetsk Oblast. Incredibly, the log tank, one of many makeshift rides the increasingly vehicle-starved Russians have constructed, worked. Until it didn't. According to the Estonian analyst Translated, the improvised vehicle withstood drone attacks but succumbed to modern artillery. A Ukrainian drone observed the vehicle, immobilized and abandoned on a dirt track outside Velika Novosilka. The log tank's endurance in the face of relentless drone attack parallels the plight of an Ukrainian Leopard 1A5 tank that, thanks to its own add-on armor, recently survived at least 8 drone strikes before finally suffering catastrophic damage. Layers of extra armor, whether metal or wood, can blunt the effects of the tiny FPV drones and their small warheads, which usually weigh no more than a few pounds. But that same armor might not stop a 100-pound artillery shell packed with 25 pounds of explosive fill. The log tank was unusually well made for a do-it-yourself Russian assault vehicle. The troops who built the vehicle proudly posted a video of their work. The technical device for transporting personnel boasted sheet metal sides covered in thick rubber. Between the armored capsule and the external lattice armor, logs are placed. One soldier explained. The roof is welded with sheet metal. The hinge door was reinforced with bricks. All that armor was enough to deflect FPV drones, which fly just a few tens of miles per hour and often strike their targets along the sides. But artillery shells streak in nearly vertically at a speed of a mile per second and can punch right through a vehicle's top armor, which is usually the thinnest. The log tank's sacrifice wasn't in vain. After gradually marching on Velika Novosilka from the fallen fortress town of Vuhledar since late last year, the Russians made their final push into Velika Novosilka in recent days.